When you think about the massive, complex world of industrial production, you have to wonder, how do you even measure success? It seems almost impossible, right? But what if I told you that sometimes a single number, just one, holds the power to transform an entire industry? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into. I mean, really think about it. Picture a giant steel mill with these rivers of molten metal, or a chemical plant that looks like a whole city of pipes and reactors. With thousands of things happening all at once, how do you even start to figure out if you're doing well? How do you know if you're actually getting better or just, falling behind? Well, the answer is something called a key performance indicator, or what everyone calls a KPI. Basically, it's one specific measurable number that shows how well a company is hitting a really important goal. And honestly, that fitness tracker analogy, it's perfect. It's like checking the vital signs to see if the whole business is healthy and making progress.
So let's dig in a little deeper. What exactly are these KPIs? The easiest way to think about them is like the dashboard in your car. They're the critical indicators that managers are constantly watching to make sure their operations are healthy, profitable, and just running the way they're supposed to.
And we are not talking about just a few numbers here. To get a handle on these enormous, sprawling operations, companies track hundreds of different metrics. Seriously, we're talking about everything from employee safety and how often a machine breaks down, all the way to financial returns and, of course, environmental impact. And believe me, this world of metrics is just huge and incredibly diverse. What's absolutely critical in one industry might be completely pointless in another. The priorities. And because of that, the things they measure can be totally different from one place to the next. Okay, so take the steel industry, for example. They're measuring things like the tons of iron ore they use, the percentage of byproducts they manage to recycle. They even track super specific emissions, like sulfur oxides per ton of steel made. I mean, the level of detail is just wild. Okay, now let's jump over to a petrochemical plant. Here, the whole focus shifts. They are completely obsessed with metrics like atmospheric emissions of very specific chemicals, the thermal efficiency of their furnaces, and exactly how much waste they create for every ton of product. It's just a perfect example of how your main goals shape what you measure. And all of this, it brings us to the real heart of the matter. With literally hundreds of different numbers you could be tracking, how does an entire industry decide what's most important? How do they find that one key metric that can actually drive real progress and make a genuine difference? To answer that, we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating case study from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. We're going to look at the cement industry, and we're going to zero in on a single, supercritical KPI, its carbon intensity. Just let this number sink in for a second. 67 million metric tons. It's just a staggering figure. And that was the total CO2 equivalent emissions from just 92 U.S. cement plants in a single year back in 2019. And look, the EPA is really clear about this. Tackling this huge number isn't just about following some regulations. They say that bringing down that carbon intensity has become a huge goal for the entire industry and for its customers too. So everybody agrees this number has to come down. Right, but here's the thing. You can't improve what you don't measure. And this is where the real power of a single KPI just shines through. The EPA used that one number, carbon intensity, to create a benchmark. It gave every single plant a clear, simple way to see how they stacked up against everyone else. So here's what the EPA did, and it's pretty smart. They ranked all the plants and split them into 4 groups, or quartiles. The top 25%, that's the 75th percentile, are the absolute best performers with the lowest carbon emissions. The bottom 25% are the ones with the highest. And just like that, every plant manager had a crystal clear, data-driven target to aim for. And this chart, wow, it just lays it all out there, doesn't it? You can see that massive performance gap. You can visually see the difference between the low-carbon leaders, the plants just chugging along in the middle, and the high-carbon plants lagging behind. And that gap, it's not just numbers. It represents a huge opportunity for improvement for the whole industry. So let's break down what that gap actually means in plain numbers. The best plants, they're about 7% more efficient than the average plant. But the total spread is what really tells the story. The most efficient plants are almost 20% less carbon intensive than the least efficient ones. Think about that. That's a huge difference. And it proves that making big improvements is actually possible right now with today's technology. Okay, so you've measured everything, you've identified the gap, now what? Well, once you can see the problem that clearly, the path to fixing it becomes much clearer too. The data itself pretty much gives you a roadmap for how to change. And the EPA report lays out 3 really clear strategies, all based on what the best plants are already doing. First, use less of the ingredient that creates the most carbon, which is called clinker. You can do that by making blended cements. Second, get more energy efficient to cut down on fuel. And third, switch to fuels with a lower carbon footprint, like natural gas. I mean, it's not magic. It's a simple, powerful, data-driven roadmap. And that brings us right back to where we started. We've seen how one single, well-chosen number, carbon intensity, can give an entire industry a benchmark, a target, and a clear path forward. It really makes you think, doesn't it? If one KPI can have this much impact on one industry, what could a whole world of them, applied smartly across all industries, do for our shared future?